Hello, thank you for joining us today on Matters of Substance. I'm Carly, your host, and today I have a very special guest with us. We have Mike O'Connor from the Moraine House. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Mike is the executive director at the Moraine House. And for those of you who don't know, the Moraine House is a recovery home here in Valparaiso, Indiana. And Mike's going to go into a little bit of the history of that and how it got, or what the Moraine House is. And but I just wanted to kind of give a little detail about Mike before we jump into that. Mike has been a client. He's been the assistant director. He served as vice president on their board for years. And then when the need arose, he took a step back from the board and went ahead and took over the executive director position. So Mike is currently filling that need at the Moraine House. And I just want to say that is awesome. And thank you for taking on that role. That's a big responsibility.
Thanks. It's a big part of my life these days. So
Great. So, Mike, could you just share a little bit with us, the listeners, what the Moraine House is and give some background on that?
Well, the Moraine House has been around since 1975. We consider ourselves a post-treatment sober living facility. We get the majority of our clients either come directly out of rehab or directly out of jail. We're like literally they're like delivered to our doorstep from jail. And I coordinate with the ladies that work at the jail, and they send me applications, and I let them know when we have an opening. But we operate with about 14 clients when we're full. There's also 2 assistant directors that live at the house as well. We do some in-house groups. We have a licensed addictions counselor that comes in every Tuesday and does a relapse prevention group. And then we also do 2 in-house groups where we talk about issues in the house with the guys each Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. So I'm hearing you do relapse prevention once a week. And so what is the benefit of having that on site?
Well, I've come to learn over the years, because we're like traditionally a 12-step house, and that was like my personal means of recovery. But I think that anything that you can get presented to these guys is beneficial, no matter where it comes from. If it comes from, like I mentioned, 12-step, if it comes from counseling, whatever it comes from, I try to give the guys everything that's out there, to use, to use in their long-term recovery, not just things that they can, we hope that, it's things that they have to do while they're in the house, but we kind of hope that those are some of the things that they continue when they leave the house as well. And with that group counseling too, it's she also offers individual counseling as well. So any of the guys can come and they can schedule any kind of, extra counseling that they feel that they need. And so I'm open to anything these days. Anything that will help these guys, I'm open to.
Yeah, I've heard so many times that there's multiple paths to recovery, and sounds like you kind of embody that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I've learned to do over the years, that there's not just one way. Mm-hmm. That there's multiple ways that people can recover. So whatever works, more power to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Are any of these initiatives, I guess the better question is, how long have these initiatives been in place at Moraine House?
I think a lot of them have developed over the years. We became a recovery home in 1975. How that all started and everything, I'm a little sketchy on all the details. I know that the house was donated by someone for that reason. And then I think just like anything else, it's just kind of over the years, you kind of just see what works and what doesn't work. And, I know that this particular, the counselor that we have coming in, she's been coming to the house for over 10 years now. And probably more like 12 or 13 now that I think about it. And so yeah, it's just like anything that they can use, anything I'm open to. I also invite some. I have some people from HealthLink. They come in, talk to the guys, tell them what resources out there. That's also beneficial. These guys are all starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically nothing, and you're just kind of learning to live again and what's out there and what you can use. And there's a lot of stuff out there that these guys can use.
Yeah. And it's great to know that you are connecting with the community, because we have a lot of resources here, especially in Valparaiso. And I think that the connection piece sometimes gets missed, and not just with you all, but with like anybody in our community. It's hard to know what we have because we are so expansive. And so getting HealthLink in there, that's a great resource. I mean, like you said, these guys are starting from scratch. So there's probably some underlying health issues that might be there, especially when we're talking about having a dependence on a substance. There could be health issues that come from that as well. And so it's great to have a medical outreach coming in and educating them and helping them out and letting them know what's there. HealthLink is something that's pretty easy to get involved with here in our area. So that's wonderful. And we also have the bus route right on the corner there. So it shouldn't be too much of a barrier to get to HealthLink or to some medical services. So that's wonderful that you allow that program to come in and you have continued to support it, because as the executive director, you can pretty much make decisions about, what to allow in and what to not. So I think that's great that you're continuing that process.
Yeah, and one thing that you mentioned too that I've learned is that Valparaiso and Porter County has a fantastic recovery community in this area. I'm from Lake County, and I think there's a tremendous difference between the recovery community out here and then the recovery community out there. And that's why I stayed in Valpo. I never wanted to move back to Crown Point. I'm like, this is where things changed for me. So, and I think there's other things too, besides HealthLink. And HealthLink is a great thing because they work with the guys. It isn't like these guys will think, well, I don't have insurance and it's going to cost me a fortune and everything like that. And HealthLink has always worked with us. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned the V-Line bus service. When a guy comes into the house, I give them a whole list of resources in Valparaiso from educational to health to the bus service to some of the resale shops where they can get cheap clothing and things like that. We give them a whole list of things like, okay, here's what you got available in Valpo. Take advantage of it.
That's interesting you mentioned the resale shops, because I know that's a huge benefit. When you said that the guys sometimes or oftentimes come from jail, I mean, just imagine coming out of that situation. There's been an arrest for whatever reason. You have nothing except for what you carried in that day. Exactly. And that's a barrier in itself to receiving services. So your guys' partnership with the jail is so important. It shows, or it helps the people in there have a place to go, because where else are they going to go? Mm-hmm. If they don't have you guys, they're going to probably maybe go back to an environment that's not safe for them to be in recovery in. Or if they're not returning there, maybe they go to a hotel for a couple nights if they have financial resources to do that. Or they have to
stay in jail.
Or they stay in jail, or they go and they're at one of our homeless shelters. It's unfortunate, but that might be an outcome for them. But they have you guys as a resource, and that's wonderful. I know several of the gals at the jail who coordinate some of that, and they've always been really wonderful in my experience, and I'm glad that you guys are connected. So as far as Moraine House goes, if somebody's interested, say they're not coming from the jail, but they're like, I need to get into recovery right now, what can they do to start that process?
The first thing that I ask people to do is go to our website, morainehouse.org. Along with a lot of information about the house, you'll find an application on there. That's what I always ask the guys to do, is fill out an application. Our email, our fax number is on the website as well. And they send it to me, and we work from there. If there's an opening and I can work them in. Right now, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I actually have a waiting list. People waiting to get in. We've been full for quite a while, and I get calls every day. One other thing too that I wanted to mention that we are the beneficiary of in this community is, like, even outside the recovery community, just the people, we get donations we're so fortunate to get so many donations, and it made me think of it when we were talking about the guys coming from jail and treatments with nothing, and people come and donate clothes. You know, there's we have some clothes that was set aside that people have donated, you know, over time, that guys can come and look through when they don't have anything to just kind of get them started. But we get, you know, Valpo is a great community for that. We get clothing donations, we get food donations, we get gift certificates, you know, so we're really fortunate, and that's how we're able to keep, you know, keep functioning, really, is by the, you know, the goodness of the community.
Yeah. I mean, Valpo is so wonderful about that, and all of Porter County, really. But we see it a lot here in Valpo because we have a lot of the agencies that like help people if they need them. So, like, you know, I think about Portage and Chesterton. They have a great communities as well. I know there's 320 Recovery, and they get a ton of support from their community. And I saw that it's there throughout all of our communities, I think. But I see a huge impact in Valparaiso just because I think it's so vast. It's certainly one of our biggest communities, and so you see that in the help that is given. Excuse me, I have a bit of a dry throat today. So as far as Moraine House goes, what do you guys typically get involved in throughout the year? I know in the past, and I don't know if this is true currently, there has been involvement in like different community events. I think I've seen people from Moraine House at like Brandon's Cause over the years at different kind of just community related events. So what do you guys typically get involved in? Anything coming up? Anything that you've recently done that was great?
Well, we just had the Riot for Recovery. Yeah, where was that at?
The Region Recovery Riot in Gary, Indiana. Yeah, the Aquatorium.
Yeah.
We also attended.
So, I mean, I think that COVID affected a lot of that, like what we were able to do, but we have some, you know, things on the back burner that in the upcoming year that we might put on some fundraisers and stuff like that. But I'm like in the planning stages and the, you know, working out on my head stages. But I think in the next year we'll be doing a lot more than we've been able to do in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think COVID put a pretty big block up for so many people. I know of several different like community events that used to occur that no longer do. Unfortunately, Brandon's Cause, which is like a recovery-based event. We work with Tracy Allen here at the coalition, and she put that on because her son had passed away from an overdose. And so she had been doing that for a few years, and I know that she decided not to this year, and I don't know all the reasons for that, but things like that have really kind of, I've seen a decline in them. That's why the Region Recovery Riot was such an amazing thing to have come out this year. Totally recovery-based. It's a safe, sober event with music and food and all kinds of different things like volleyball. We were charged with heading that up here at the council, and there's...
That was Lake and Porter counties too, so that was nice.
Yeah, exactly. The wonderful thing is it's supposed to be for all of Northwest Indiana, and we don't have anything like that to my knowledge. So it's an amazing event, and I know the plan is to do it a second time and just keep it going. So there was a beautiful remembrance wall that is pretty amazing to let people have that experience of putting their loved one's name up, and you know, because unfortunately we've lost a lot of people to this disease. So so that was a really cool experience, and I'm excited to see it come up in the future as well. And so what about Popcorn Fest? Do you guys get involved with that at all? Because that's right here in downtown Valparaiso, and that's got to be a challenge.
We're not this year, and we were tossing it around, and then I also reached out to the other recovery houses in the area, Respite Analysis, and they weren't doing anything this year. We were going to see if maybe we could do something together, and there was no, so we're not participating in the Popcorn Fest this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's like...
But you'll walk right past the Moraine House if you're in the parade or anything. You go right by it.
Yes, right. I know. I feel like it just takes over Valpo for like a whole couple days. It's an extremely large event. We do environmental scans. We've done them for the past, I want to say 10 years it is. Basically, we walk around and because we're mainly charged with doing prevention here at the council. And so as a prevention measure, we walk around and take a look and see what kind of signage there is surrounding alcohol. Because there's a ton of youth here at this event, right? And so we want to kind of get an understanding of what they may be seeing. And so we collect that data. And then this year, we're also doing a parent awareness survey to help us understand how parents view alcohol, specifically as it pertains to their youth. And so we will be out there, boots on the ground, just trying to get some of this information done. But it's a cool event to see, and the parade is massive, and it's unique.
Yeah, well, it's a test for a lot of our guys too. We're so close to it, and then all the things that are going on there, and you want to participate, but you're living a different life now, a clean and sober life now, so you're kind of being around that. So
that leads me to a question. Just out of curiosity, is that like so obviously you now have access right outside of your front door, close to outside of your front door, when it comes to the Popcorn Fest, because there are like beer tents and things like that, things that we don't normally have going on in the community. So how do you guys prepare your guys for that week or that weekend?
Well, we talk to them, but we also have I'm going to constantly remind them too that, we can drug and alcohol test anytime we want to. Mm-hmm. So that's always going to be that thing hopefully is enough of a deterrent other than, learning that this stuff ruined our lives. But just the guys coming back, they know that's a possibility. So
yeah. Well, and there's accountability in that, and that's important.
Yeah, and it is. It's like that's like an event like that where it's like thrown in your face. But the truth is, you can't avoid it. Mm-hmm. You walk down the street, and you're going to see signs and people, and it's just one of the things that we have to learn to live with.
Yeah. Well, and especially you have a great location because you're close to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. That includes several bars that we have in our community, right? Right here on the downtown square. And so I can imagine that's a bit of a challenge for people who are living a sober life and, trying to stay on that path. That can be hard.
Well, it is. But again, at some point you're going to have to, the bars ain't going to close down because Mike's not drinking anymore.
Right.
They're not going to, it's just something that, you got to learn to live with. And it's like, and part of recovery, I think that if you do this thing the right way, you're going to be able to learn to live in those situations without the temptation or anything like that, or not white knuckling it like anytime. Some events you can go to and have a good time. What can I bring to the occasion instead of what can I take from it?
I like that. Yeah, that's a great perspective.
It's like I said, it's not going away because Mike doesn't drink anymore. So you have to learn to live with it. But I think I'm talking maybe a little bit ahead of myself because we're 6 months. We're a 6-month program. Mm. So when you think about it in those terms, the majority of our guys are going to have like right around that time of clean time, or maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. They're new to recovery, so you kind of people, places, and things does come to apply when you're kind of new in recovery. Some things that you want to stay away from.
When you say people, places, and things, can you explain to the listeners what that means? Because that's a common term used in the recovery community.
I think people would refer to more like your old clique, your old friends, the people that you used to hang around with. Early on in recovery, you can't be going and hang around with, the guys you used to party with. And places are, the bars, the events like this. And again, I think you learn to adjust to this, but early on, those things do have a prevalence where that is important that you be aware of those things, the people, the places, and things, then you can avoid those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a little bit of power, you got a little bit of control to avoid those things.
Mm-hmm. It kind of brings me back to the thought about relapse prevention and why it's so important that you guys have it in your, like right there, class in your guys's, in your building. Because that's what relapse prevention is teaching, I believe, if I remember correctly, what relapse prevention's curriculum kind of surrounds. It's about making sure that there are new skills put in place for that person. So if the temptation arises, they can either navigate away from it, or they can just avoid the tempting places, the places where they may have to white knuckle through.
Yeah, and I think what comes from that too is that group, and in recovery in general, you learn to communicate a little bit better. Don't keep those things into yourself. Talk to somebody about those things. You know, that's one of the great things that I like to see guys take advantage of, is where they talk to one another.
Yeah.
Guys in the house are there for one another, and you know, one guy might say, "Hey, man, I got this going on. I'm thinking about this. I'm worried about this," and you talk to another guy about it, and just not internalizing it. Getting it out there, and I think that's a big part of the relapse prevention as well. And you learn those tools, you know, over time. It's not like everything comes at once. It's just something. It's an educational thing where you just learn it. And I think that the way that I look at it, the truth is us in recovery are basically starting our lives over again. And you're learning. There's another, phrase that you hear a lot is on living life on life's terms. You know, not my terms, but life's terms. And you got to recreate your life. And I have this thing that I say, and I always throw guys off when I say it. And I always ask, if I say, "Do you have a problem with drugs and alcohol?" And the answer is always yes. And I always say, "What if I told you no, you don't?" And they always look at me with that crazy look, and I say, "You have a problem with life, and drugs and alcohol are your solution." So it's life that we have to learn to live with, and when good, bad, terrible, great, we have to learn different solutions to live life with other than drugs and alcohol. And that's one of the things, too, that we hope to put a foundation at the Moraine House with the guys coming in there, that they learn those things. There are different solutions. And so...
That's important. I think that's an important message for people to hear, because, what we know, or what we've learned over time, maybe we didn't always know this, but what we know now is that a lot of substance use comes from trauma and unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? We experience a trauma or something happens.
This is how I deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to, with drugs and alcohol. And that's what we're learning that's why it's solutions. Life is our problem. We have to learn new solutions, and that's what recovery does.
Yeah.
It's what recovery's done for me. There's so many different solutions that I have these days other than, drugs and alcohol. And, just speaking about myself, just because I got clean doesn't mean my life is great.
Right.
Bad stuff still happens, in it. If you're an alcoholic and an addict, it doesn't matter. If it's great, I'm going to do it. If life's great, I'm going to do it. If life's terrible, I'm going to do it. It's just, again, that's the solution. That's how we deal with it. And so you got to learn to, when life is great, how to deal with it differently. When life is terrible, how do I, learn how to deal with it differently. Solutions is a big thing in my head. It's it's a big word, learning different solutions to life.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that like saying, if you will.
I'd like to say I came up with it, but I didn't. Somebody else gave it to me.
Well, it's wonderful. It makes complete sense. Oh, you talked a lot about one solution being community, right? Having the guys to talk to. You talked about the 12-step program. For those listening, if you've listened before, you probably are familiar with what that is. But if not, I'll do my best to give my explanation of it. But please, Mike, jump in if you think there needs to be added stuff there. But basically, the 12-step community is, we're talking typically about NAAA, and those communities have people who come together and they work through 12 steps. The 12 steps have I don't know all of them, but they basically are talking about accountability, accepting what's going on, accepting your higher power, and really kind of getting back and connected with other people and understanding why using substances has been going on in your life, and then connecting with other people to help you maintain that sober living. And a lot of times there's sponsors in there. So is that something you guys at the Moraine House utilize? Like, I know you talked about 12 steps, but is sponsorship something that occurs frequently or that you promote within your guys' community, within your house?
It's one of the requirements
Okay.
in the house. Some of the requirements, and I tell the guys every time they come in when I do an intake, this is what you need to do, and they have to go to at least 5 meetings a week. They have to get a sponsor. They have 2 weeks to get a sponsor, and they also have to meet with them once a week. And they also each room in the house has a different day where they do a progress report, and there's questions on the progress report like where are they at in certain areas in the moment, and then where they would like to be in certain areas, in those areas as goals. And then so that one time a week when they have to turn it in, and they go over with staff, and we evaluate each guy every week on where they're at. But they also have to turn in that meeting sheet and that sponsor sheet to show proof that, okay, you're doing what the house requires you to do. So those are requirements. The groups that we had already talked about, the relapse prevention. We have in-house groups, and also on Wednesday and Thursday where we talk about issues. The guys have chores in the house. They have minimal chores. It's usually, pretty much just taking care of your area. We have curfews. We have morning meditation. But there's a lot. And a lot of the guys come in there and they can kind of get that overwhelmed feeling. But it takes a couple of weeks, and employment is another thing. There is rent that the guys have to pay, so unemployment is another big thing too. But when those guys do that, you kind of just watch the change in them. I get to see the change where this guy that was struggling before, now he's got a routine down, and everything is, and that's when the time goes by quick too. That's what I always tell the guys. When you're sitting around waiting or not doing anything, but you go out there, get up in the morning, go to work, come home, have dinner, go to your group, go to a meeting, go to bed, get up and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And then on, the weekends, it's a little less, there aren't as many requirements. And we also, after 30 days, you can get a pass. So you can go away if you can stay the night with your family or whatever. But, and again, going back to that thing that as soon as they come back, we're going to test them. We're going to drug test them. So.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good thing, though. I know when I worked in a recovery home, one of the, when we would do kind of like that exit paperwork when somebody was leaving, they always said the structure was one of the best things they took away from it. And it sounds like you guys kind of actually all sounds very similar to how we structured at the recovery home I was at. And I mean, it's such a beneficial skill that I don't know if people quite understand is a skill you have to learn sometimes.
Yes, and sometimes you have to learn the hard way too, because we also have a demerit system. So if you're not compliant with something going on, you get a demerit. So that's kind of the thing that, the people come in there and they're grateful to be in there, and it's I need this structure, and then you start calling them on it, and it's like, oh man, but it's like you talk to usually the people that have been there after the 6 months, and that is one of the things that's commonly mentioned is the structure, because when you're in active addiction, you're going through everything. You're trying to figure out everything in a warped mind, and then you get in this environment and you're figuring out things a little bit differently. And some of the words that you mentioned, that accountability, that's one thing that we stress when they come in. Accountability, not only to yourself but to others, and to be sensitive to yourself and others, of other people's needs, just as, besides your own. And it's difficult sometimes when you're in that environment. You got 14 guys in a house, and it's just nice to see that when the guys do get into that routine, and you see it, and you kind of just watch the change in them, and that's kind of like one of the, unfortunately, not to bring it down this down a little bit, but there's so many people just dropping off, daily, and it's just like so many people have never been afforded this opportunity, and when you see somebody that takes advantage of it, it kind of, you kind of sit back and like, this is cool, to watch this happen. Somebody's like one of those guys that came in handcuffs or whatever. One guy, that comes out of treatment not being able to figure out anything, and then you see them kind of starting to operate life successfully.
Yeah.
And taking advantage of the house in itself isn't going to save anybody, but it's what we put in place. Those are the things that could, make a difference in your life. And but unfortunately, there's just so many more people are not getting it than get it.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I'm talking like, I'm not just talking about Moraine House. I'm talking about, across the country, across the world. The things that are the fentanyl and everything that are in drugs today. People are just, and it just brings to mind one thing that I understand the intent behind it, but one of the phrases I don't like around here is relapse is a part of recovery. Because I know a lot of people that never got that chance to come back. After their relapse, they died. And so that relapse was never a part of their recovery. They didn't get the opportunity to come back. So I take that very, very seriously, that no, I don't believe that relapse is a part of recovery. I understand the meaning behind it. Of course, you're always going to be welcome back into the community, whether it's the Moraine House or the fellowships or whatever. But personally, it's like, no, I know too many people that didn't get their chance. Relapse was not part of their recovery.
Yeah.
And
that's so important to highlight, though. I mean, because our words matter, right? So if you're telling somebody who's newly in the sober living and you say, oh, well, relapse is part of recovery, it kind of gives them like that, well, it's okay.
Exactly. That's my point. Is that thing's going in the back of their mind that, okay, well, relapse, I'm going to get my relapse out of the way. It's part of recovery.
Right.
That's what they tell me, right? So it's just one of the things that personally, again, I understand the intent behind it. You're always welcome back, but I just know it's not.
Right.
It is not a part of recovery.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit ago, you touched on fentanyl, and we've talked about that a lot, so I won't.
It's in everything.
Right. It's everywhere. So how, if our words are saying, okay, giving that little piece, that little nugget of it's okay, it may be a life-altering, might be something you don't come back from, I mean, we know that relapse is a very dangerous time for people because they oftentimes return back to whatever substance they were doing at whatever level they were doing, and their body is no longer capable of handling that. And, unfortunately, we lose people to that. So I think it's really important what you're saying, right, is our words matter, and we need to be thoughtful about what we're saying to people because it can be a life or death. And I appreciate that because, I mean, coming from a place of somebody who worked in recovery homes, that was something I heard all the time. Relapse is a part of recovery. And I can see why, that is something that we need to change and we need to be thoughtful about not saying.
Yeah, if you're fortunate enough to where you don't die from it and you get that opportunity to come back, God bless you, but there's so many out that haven't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, people that I've been close to, people that I sponsored, people who I was friends with. It's just, it's the tough part of this business is, and just speaking personally, it's tough to experience that and then still to continue to want to be in this field and continue to have the desire to help people and the willingness to help people because. I've experienced in the past where you kind of go into this self-preservation where I don't want to go through this anymore. I don't want to try to help a guy and he doesn't make it anymore. But I try is to you try to carry the message. I don't have to say I'm not saving anybody, I'm not killing anybody, but I'm trying to do that. But it was difficult at a couple of times in my recovery where I saw that and to continue to want to have that willingness to help people. It's tough because you're close to some of the people around here and it's so. Yeah. But it's one of the things that you have to do. And it's one of the, when you, you mentioned the steps, which was fine, but that's that 12 step That's what it is. Helping, keep trying to carry this message to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems so much ingrained in caring for others in that process, right? And you mentioned too the need that part of what you guys do is recognizing the needs of others along with yourself, and I think that goes with continuing on, right? Continuing to sponsor, continuing to be supportive to other people, even though it's got to be hard. I mean, it's got to be hard to see that. And then, I mean, I don't know this from a personal experience, but I would imagine that it's got to be kind of, I guess the word I'm thinking of is triggering, but to see people in that state sometimes, because you can go back to when, I was there at one point and, get lost in that train of thought.
Or what's the point? What's the point? If they're not, I'm trying and they're not getting it or whatever, it's like, what's the point? Or you just say, screw it or whatever. We can't have that mentality.
Right.
Even everything you want to. And I think that, what I said, it was like that self-preservation. You want to protect yourself from feeling those things. But it's just like it's just part of the deal around here. You gotta, if I've gotten better, then I owe it to somebody else to try to help them get better.
And that it's possible because you have. And you see, even though there are a lot of people we see that don't get better, there are still a lot that we see do get better too.
I'm living proof that, it's like no matter what you're going through, it does, you can get through it clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's physical pain, mental pain, family, employment, whatever, loss of a loved one, it goes back to that earlier conversation we had when I was talking about solution. There's different solutions to dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys are integrating some of those right there in the in the house, some of those solutions. We don't have a ton of time left, but I wanted to go back to ask a question, and I don't know if this is true for Moraine House, but I'd be interested in learning to know. Do you guys have peer recovery coaches there? I know that you have assistant directors, and you said there were 2 of them, so I'm guessing that's probably along the lines. I mean, obviously they manage the house as well, but so do you guys have peer recovery coaches? Is that something you guys are looking to gain if you don't have them yet?
We do in that sense that there is a couple of people that I think that are coming talking to some of the guys in the house under that thing. But thanks for reminding me when you said that. Like a little bit ago when I referred to those progress reports that the guys have to turn in, we do have a progress review committee. It's outside. It's people. Some of the people that are on the board, but not all of them. We have it the first and third Thursdays of the month where they come in and they look at those sheets that we were just talking about, and then they meet individually with guys in the house, and that's kind of like we call it progress review committee to see where they're at. I think it's nice because it's like they're dealing with staff all the time, and then to see this. And it's people in the recovery community and, people that are early on talking to these people that may have, have dealt with situations that the clients are dealing with too. And they can talk in that sense. And they also have that progress review sheet to refer to so they can, pick out a couple of things that they want to talk to, and it's in a helpful manner. We do that twice a month too. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice because it's another layer of them having that peer connection, right? Of somebody who's like showing interest and I care. But what you touched on and what you said, and I think is probably like super important, is it's not staff, right?
Exactly. Because they deal with us every day. And
Right.
I think that's a big thing that is like, I'm not telling them what to do all the time, and you get these people from the outside, and it can, it's beneficial to us too. I'm open-minded to it because maybe they'll see something that I'm not seeing, and be able to help the guy with it.
Right. I mean, it's all centered around helping the person, right? That's what you're there for.
It's all about.
Yeah, you're helping, whether that's they're in the house or there's somebody who's just in sober living or just newly in recovery, right? It's about helping. So you guys definitely exude that. And the way that you have Moraine House set up, just from this conversation, I can see that's like at the center of what you guys are doing. And you're really trying to make sure that the people who come in that door have the most help that they can get, and they learn skills to live sober.
It's kind of like, here's what we feel will be helpful to you guys in your recovery, and then then it's up to them to take advantage of it, and to take full opportunity of it while they're there. Mm-hmm. And that personally, my hope is that some of the things that they learn in there that they carry over, once they leave there. Because I always tell them when they leave, I go, they get a diploma, they graduated, and I go, okay, what this thing really means is you stayed in one place for 6 months. Mm-hmm. The big part is now when you leave here. That's the big test. And like, what are you going to take with you that you learned while you were here at the Moraine House? And my hope is a lot of it that they're going to take with them once they leave there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're giving them the best tools you can. Well, I mean, I think that our listeners today have probably got a pretty good understanding of what's going on at the Moraine House, and we know that they can reach out to you guys on the website, and I believe I have that here in front of me to why don't you go ahead and say it so I don't have to... Oh, there it is, but go ahead.
MoraineHouse.org, and you can get some, information about the house, but it's also where the application and then our email and fax numbers on there. Send it off to me, and also I'm sure our phone number is on there too.
Mm-hmm. 219
464-9983.
Yes.
So we're out there. Recovery's possible. I think initially the hardest part is asking for help, but once that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and you said earlier there's a bit of a wait list. So if you are somebody listening, or somebody who you think could utilize the Moraine House and just isn't maybe ready today, start the process, because when you're ready in a couple weeks or in a month or maybe 2 months, that's when you might get the call. So
plant the seed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That recovery's possible, and here is this organization that's willing to help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you.
Really
this was cool.
it. Yeah. We like to keep it very easy, conversational, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.